but nonetheless, we are here. It's your boy D, 1/3 of your favorite sports crew, Sports Rap. The second third, Baldy, is on his way. He's en route. He will be here very shortly. If you didn't catch me this morning, did my YouTube, I did my Facebook Live, and I talked about what we're going to discuss today. So as we know, one of the biggest sporting events of the year is upon us, March Madness, and a lot of people like to argue with me or debate with me and go with the Super Bowl being the biggest sporting event. I said, but basketball is my life, so to speak, and basketball is what I live for. This is why I'm here. So I think March Madness is the biggest sporting time of the year because it's a lot of parity that goes into the selection, a lot of parity within the teams, and it's a lot of excitement because you never know what's going to happen on any given day. With that being said, we have a guest in the studio today. Good friend of mine. I've known this gentleman since we were teenagers. It's a long time because we grown-ups now. I'm not going to divulge our ages and how long that's been, but we are definitely good friends. I appreciate him taking the time out of his day to come out. And once I introduce him, and I'm going to give him a minute to speak on himself for a second, but if you don't know him, his name is Monte Rose, former head coach of University of Delaware men's basketball, who actually got Delaware into the big dance. Hence the reason I thought about him to bring him in today. So without any more shenanigans from me, but there will be more later on, just trust me. That's just what we do. Monte, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Well, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the invitation, and anytime I get an opportunity to talk sports and talk college basketball in general, but March Madness specifically, it's always a lot of fun. I think when you talk about one of the most exciting sporting events, I think one of the things that makes March Madness exciting is it's a one-game deal, and it's not a series like the NBA, baseball, things like that, where normally 9 times out of 10 the best team wins.
Mm-hmm.
But with March Madness, it's not like that, and it's a one game deal. And if you're on that night and a favorite is off, you have a great opportunity. And one of the biggest thrills in my coaching career was leading Delaware to the NCAA tournament, and unfortunately we were a 13th seed, and we had to play Michigan State, who was a 4 seed. And it was interesting to me, excuse me, listening to all the pundits on the stations and things after the picks had come out. More than a few of them had Michigan State winning the national title that year.
Yeah,
So, when I hear different coaches get on and they talk about the seedings, the seedings don't so much, like they were a 4 seed, it didn't, the 2, 3, and 1 seed weren't really hurt. We were hurt because they were a 4 seed. We had a great opportunity to advance, but they were so good that year, and so we didn't. We played them tough, and we had a great time out in Spokane, Washington, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was one of the most thrilling things in my coaching career, and I was happy to be able to get the student athletes that we coached into that environment.
Yeah, I know it's a great feeling, and a lot of people have that, I guess, bias, and they tend to be negative Nancy's, so to speak, and they will say, oh, well, you made it, but you didn't advance, so it was okay. I beg to differ. Like we just talked before we came on air, not to the level that you were, but I was a coach as well. And anytime you have that kind of success, I think, is a success for you and your teammates. There's no better feeling than playing in the NCAA tournament or coaching in the NCAA tournament, because you look at now that they picked 68 teams. You know, I remember back when it was 64,
Right.
but they've added the extra games in. But nonetheless, making the NCAA tournament was a dream for a lot of players, and it's a memorable moment that you will remember, I'll say, for the rest of your life.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, I think that's part of the reason why at the end of the tournament, after the championship game, their theme song is that one shining moment. And you know, you may not get that shining moment, and I mean that saying you may not win every game. You know, only one team's going to go through undefeated.
Right.
But the atmosphere and the camaraderie that gets fine-tuned, if you will, or stronger amongst a team and their coaching staff. Now, before we get into our actual March Madness stuff, I do want to ask you one question. Now, I know that coaching a Division I team is hectic. Coaching any basketball team, any team is
Yes.
hectic.
Yes.
Any team, like I said, we just talked about that off the air anyway. But how much did it intensify once you won the CAA tournament and knew that you were going to the big dance?
Well, I think for us, the way that we approached it, and we had an approach to our season. We used to break our season down into different segments. It was the non-conference portion of our schedule. It was the regular season conference portion of our schedule, and then it was the postseason portion of our schedule. And you know, we really used the non-conference part of our schedule. We always played a very difficult schedule, and we used that schedule to prepare us for conference play. Normally for us, it would start in the first week in January. So we would use all of our games in November, December as a barometer as to where do we really need to get better? What are the things that we're deficient at? And you know, how can we use these certain things and instill them in our players so we can be better in the conference play? And you know, what we used to do is we would, even the first couple of weeks of conference play, we were still tweaking. We're still trying to find, you know, where our strengths and weaknesses were. But we prided ourselves on my 10 years at Delaware. We always were playing our best basketball the end of February going into March. And, you know, that's how we wanted to do. So once that regular season was over and it came to conference tournament time, our players knew, you know, it was a one and done type of atmosphere. And in 2014, we won the regular season, so we were the number one seed in the tournament, of the CAA tournament. And, you know, one of the things that was, and it's still true today, it was very difficult in the CAA to win the tournament as a one seed for whatever reason. Like everybody's coming at you, all eyes are on you, and that sort of thing. But we, you know, won the regular season, so, you know, having a one seed meant you're already guaranteed to go to the NIT. We wanted to be selfish as a team, as a program, and you know, yeah, it's nice to go to the postseason, but we want the big dance. We want the truth. So the intensity
just
really.
to have your back.
Right,
I don't
so.
like the word selfish. I mean, we laughing about it now, but I don't think that's selfish. I mean, and not to cut you off, I'm gonna let you get back in, but I just had to jump in real quick. I understand your point, but this is just me. I don't like that word because your season is so long, and I understand you get that number one seed in your conference tournament, you pretty much guaranteed the NITs. NITs are great,
Yes.
you know, because it's postseason. You
Yep.
will have that recognition and all that jazz, but your ultimate goal is to make the big dance.
Right.
And like I said, a lot of people will debate me and say, well, you got there and you got bumped out in the first round. In my opinion, doesn't really matter. And a lot of times what I use to fuel my argument and my debate is, have you been there? And a lot of people retract, or they look at me kind of dumbfounded, like, well, why would you say that? I said, well, I say that because you can sit here with me, never have done that, and say, well, you didn't win, but you know, you got there, but all right. I just feel like until you're actually in that environment, and once you get into that environment, I think that whole idea changes.
Well, if you ask any coach, any player that has ever been to the NCAA tournament, would they rather, and it's funny because I used to ask myself this question, other people would ask me this question, would you rather go to the NIT and make it all the way to the championship or the Final Four to NIT and get to Madison Square Garden, or make the NCAA tournament and get knocked out in the first round? Or I'll take this step further, win the NIT, win the championship of the NIT,
Okay.
or go to the NCAA tournament and get knocked out in the first round. 98% of the coaches and players, once they have experienced the NCAA tournament, will tell you, I'd much rather go to the NCAA tournament, even if we do get knocked out in the first round. It's a whole different ballgame. And that's not to belittle the NIT in any way, because I think it's a great tournament, and it's a great, if you don't make the NCAA tournament, it's a great stepping stone for young teams and that sort of thing. But when you make that NCAA tournament, the exposure that you get for your team, your program, your players, for your university is second to none. And it's even changed, you know, even over the course of the last 2 or 3 years.
Right.
The importance that's placed on going to the NCAA tournament by administrations is it's off the charts. It's probably unfair to a lot of coaches, because you can have a great regular season, and if you don't go to the NCAA tournament, a lot of administrations are considering a failure, which I think
Right.
is totally ridiculous. But getting back to your original question, the intensity is very, very high. And, you know, when you get to the CAA tournament and then you get to the championship game, we really cruised through the CAA tournament, and cruised, you know, we won our first game by 9, won our second game by 12. But it was teams that we had beaten twice throughout the year, so we were beating them for a third time, which is always difficult, but we were pretty talented. And we played William and Mary in the championship game. And William and Mary was also a team that we had beaten twice pretty handily during the regular season. And we got off to a great start. But you talk about that intensity, you know, any misstep was, you know, magnified. And what happened in that game is very clear to me. We were up, we were winning, they went on a run, and when you looked up, we were down 6 points with 1 minute and 6 seconds to go. And again, come into the game, heavy favorite, expected to win, everything. And gosh, the thoughts that went through my head when we're down 6 with 1 minute and 6 seconds to go weren't good thoughts. They weren't very positive thoughts. But, you know, we kept grinding, and we were very, very fortunate to win. But that intensity and that scrutiny that happens in the postseason is real.
Right. It is very real. And there you have it, folks. So all you people that want to argue with me about NCAAs and going and getting bumped out in the first round, got firsthand experience, firsthand knowledge from a Division I NCAA tournament coach. Going to take a break, listen to some music, give my partner a chance to get here. We will come back, and then we will get into these brackets. Before we do that, got to give a shout out to the missus of Sports Rap, who's here with us in spirit. I also have to give a shout out to Michelle Wilson Ross, let me be correct. Okay. And I also want to give a shout out to Lauren La Buckets and Justin, 2 young people who I don't really know, but I follow because of my friend. Actually, both of them are my friends. We have a history. Let's just say that. So again, shout out to Justin Ross, Lauren La Buckets Ross. Monte Ross for being here.